look at a new Supreme Court ruling that will dramatically limit federal affirmative action programs. Are programs designed to increase opportunities for minorities fair? A new Supreme Court ruling seems to suggest they often are not. Yesterday's decision sets a tough new standard for federal affirmative action programs, and Julie Johnson of ABC News has more on the story.
Yesterday's ruling focused on federal programs that help minority companies win highway construction contracts. It was help some contractors found unfair. Colorado businessman Randy Pesh brought the case to the court.
The fact that I'm a male or I'm white, that shouldn't be the reason why I lose a job.
But the court stopped short of ending affirmative action in contracting.
What it did was say that the federal government has to operate in the same way as states and localities.
That state and local standard was set in 1989 when the Supreme Court struck down a Richmond, Virginia affirmative action program. The program set aside 30% of all city contracts for minority-owned companies. After the ruling, minority contractors say their business was cut in half.
They more or less came out in search of minority participation. But after 1989, 1990, our contracts somewhat slowed up.
Minority owners are concerned the new ruling will mean the same thing, but on a larger scale.
Over 85% of the work that minority contractors do is in the public sector. We are not even considered for work in the private sectors. Contractors consider us to work only when the government requires them to involve us.
Requirements that have steered about 3% of all construction contracts to minority firms. A sliver of a pie, some worry will only shrink. Julie Johnson, ABC News, Washington.
Joining us now from our Colorado Springs affiliate, KRDO, is Randy Pesh, and from Washington, Phyllis Hill-Slater, president of a family-owned architectural and engineering firm. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Mr. Pesh, I understand that you would rather not debate the issue with Ms. Hill-Slater, so we will turn to you first and then later to Ms. Slater. What's your reaction to yesterday's ruling?
We're very happy with the ruling.
How do you believe the prior policies affected your business negatively?
Well, in the past, and I'm sure it'll continue in the future until some other things change, we would lose on average a job or two a month to these programs when we were the low bidder. And I hope to get that corrected. It shouldn't happen that I lose jobs simply because I'm a white male.
What exactly did happen to you?
On this particular case, we had submitted the lowest bid for some guardrail work in the southwest corner of Colorado, and the prime contractor contracted with a minority-owned firm in order to meet his DBE goals. And it had happened many times before that, and it happens on a monthly basis since then.
But why was it awarded to him then? Exclusively because he was a minority?
That is correct. I was the lowest responsible bidder. The prime contractor, in a letter to me, explicitly said that the only reason they contracted with the other firm was to meet their minority goals.
Now, aren't you concerned, though, in a world that still isn't colorblind, where white males do hold a significant amount of the political and financial power, that rulings like this will end up hurting minorities?
No, I'm not. My competitors that I deal with on a day-to-day basis get probably 95% of their work by being the low bidder. I see no reason why they would not continue to be in business with or without this program.
What do you think will happen to your company immediately? Do you think there will be immediate benefits?
No, there won't, because we've been remanded back to the lower courts for them to consider the case based on these new guidelines. So it'll be quite some time before we see any change in the way business is done on a day-to-day basis.
All right, Mr. Pesh, let's turn now to Ms. Hill-Slater. What's your reaction to what you're hearing Mr. Pesh say?
I think that, I think he's very misinformed. We're talking about, in his case, we're talking about 30% of all contract dollars. And those goals are not being met. Right now, women business owners, small business owners make up 50% of the population of small business owners, and only less than 1%, a little more than 1%, I'm sorry, of contract federal dollars are going to women business owners.
But how do you answer the argument that, well, no matter what percentage goes to whom, the issue here is really qualifications and should only be qualifications? What do you say to that argument?
I agree. Qualifications is key. My business would not exist if we were not qualified. That is given. I don't understand why people seem to equate women or minorities with being unqualified.
But
that is the biggest myth going.
But I think it went a little further than that. In this case, it's not just talking about qualifications. I don't think there was an argument that the other firm was qualified. It's that Mr. Pesh submitted a lower bid.
I don't know whether, I don't know that the particulars of that particular case, but I know that usually it's the most qualified, lowest bidder. and I don't understand how that happened in his case, or unless games were being played. Because sometimes what happens with minorities, they're asked to meet a certain price in order to get on the project. And believe me, they lowball. Usually we get paid less.
But what do you think will happen? You have said that affirmative action has helped your company. If what happened yesterday, the Supreme Court decision, is the death knell for affirmative action, what will happen to your company and others like it?
We will suffer. And along with us suffering is all the people that we employ. 85% of my work comes from the goals programs. And without them, on their own, given for companies on their own just to hire minorities, they won't do it.
Phyllis Hill-Slater, Randy Pesh, our thanks for joining us this morning. Very controversial issue. We will see how it plays out in the months to come. Thank you.